Welcome to this episode of Brewed for Change. Today we have a very interesting company that is merging nutritional science with biotechnology and creating new products, essentially replacing animal-based proteins from our diet. It's a completely new space, very nascent. One of the first homegrown companies in this space in India. I would love to welcome Zero Cow Factory and the visionary founders leading the company, Sohil and Parini Kapadia. Thank you so much for being here on this episode of Brewed for Change by Green Frontier Capital. Parini, would love for you to introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your background and your motivation to actually start the company, and would love to hear from Sohil like as well after you finish.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for inviting us for this wonderful podcast. So, hi everyone. Means I'm Parini Kapadia, co-founder and chief scientific officer of Zero Cow Factory. Educational wise means I have done masters in biotechnology and postgraduate diploma in clinical research and pharmacovigilance. And I have a decade plus years of research experience in the field of dairy analysis, clinical microbiology, food analysis. So, like after having like a decade plus years of experience, I want to start my own startup or my own journey related to the new innovative kind of things. Okay. And we and Sohil both are like personally interested for the this kind of the solution, like the sustainable solution or like any kind of the innovation related to the food. Like we are like very much aware about the animal cruelty and the climate change due to the traditional animal agriculture. So we know about that. And I'm personally from the science background. Okay, and after having so much experience, so at that time, like when we start the Zero Cow Factory, I thought it's like a now right time to give something to the planet for the better life, not only for the human, but also for the animal also, animals and the environment. So that's why we have started Zero Cow Factory.
Wow, that's very novel. So you worked in dairy science, so you've seen the
Yes.
dairy industry, right? And like a lot of us
Yeah.
have not really seen not really, we don't really like understand the process it actually entails, which we'll go into later, like a little bit into this conversation, and in actually how bad dairy farming actually is for the environment.
Yes.
So glad to have you today. Sohil, would love to hear your background. What got you to start this with Parini as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Karan and GFC for inviting us. So journey started when the ideation was early 2020, right? Long time back, pre-COVID time. Um, and this sector I was closely following actually alternative protein space. Um, and largely the innovation is happening towards the West, right? Where even consumer awareness, the products are in the shelf, right? And if you look at the 1920 time where there was a lot of buzz in Indian VC system also that where is the beyond meat of India? Where is the impossible food of India? Right? And then the perfect day has come up as a full first pioneering startup in this space, right? To raise a lot of money, getting under the FDA approval for one of the first dairy free protein, right? So that was a point where if you look at other side as India as a country, uh, we are the number one in terms of the dairy production and consumption both, right? But we haven't seen much innovation or the technology advancement in the last thousands of years. It is the same process we are following and we are continuing, right? So if that was a point where we found there's a huge market opportunity basically, right, to get into such thing and to understand few data because looking at the growing population and limited natural resources, right? That is what the we are talking about net zero and all today. So traditional agriculture is absolutely impossible after a few decades, right? That is what the even UN has already declared. Because you need a lot of natural resources like water, land, and other things, right? Um but few countries are already suffering from the, let's say, scarcity of the water and arable lands, especially, right? But this will grow, right? The problem will grow as the more population we need to feed, right? And we are estimating about to feed 10 billion people by 2050. So this is a huge task basically, and a few countries are really progressive because it's a burning issue for them with respect to food security. For an example, Singapore in Asia or Middle East countries, right? Because they are largely dependent on food import even today, right? And they don't have any resources from natural point of view. So this was a point, and I don't come with the actually biotech or the life science background, right? So to solve the problem is a big enough, right, with respect to climate and other things, but uh, I did a startup before, and I was looking at my third startup venture in at that moment of time, and I started discussion with a Parini because I definitely wanted someone who wanted to impact in this space with a scientific background. So this was a point where she wanted to start also her entrepreneurship journey, and I wanted to start my third venture, and that's how we started. In early 20 to get into can we be make a business out of it, because when we started looking at few data, not India, in Asia also there was no one who is working on such technology actually. So when we started, it was a huge bet on us ki, can we be a first Asian startup to bring precision fermentation to produce food ingredients, especially to start with the dairy proteins. Yeah, and then I think the journey so far, I think a lot of challenges definitely, but after 3.5 years, I think we are still continuing. We are enjoying, right, and we are carrying that passion and for a better planet.
That's a good balance between the two of you, because we've got the one very passionate individual who wants to change the world in Parini, and not to say that you don't, but you're more the businessman in this whole in the whole like in the whole co-founder mix. So it's a very good balance of like business as well as technology and having that scientific know-how to actually build a company.
Yeah, true.
So no, that's really good. So the one thing you actually spoke about, Sohil, was the environmental impacts, and I think what a lot of us also, and I just want to get into this a little bit, right? What a lot of us don't understand is our environmental impact on food. So there's one statistic, for example, that I came across, which says a household typically consumes 2,000 liters of water every day. 1,500 liters is only because of our food consumption. So for me, that is a stark, that is that's in that is a very alarming statistic. 2,000 liters of water, we're running out of water, right? A liter of milk takes close to 990. They rounded off to 1,000 liters like of water to actually produce. And a liter like of milk is about 15,
Yeah.
16 grams of methane emissions, which is 20 times worse than actually CO2. So people don't really like understand this. So how do you get people to buy into the fact that look, we need to change our ways, and this is why zero cow factory is so relevant to what it is for the future of food.
Yeah, I think you are right, absolutely, Karan. So, as a climate also is a hot topic today, right? I mean, and going forward as well, right? Because this is the way where we need to have a lot of solutions across different verticals and industries, right? But today also, even if India is also nascent, and if globally also, the problem is that climate is like people understand that the EV can solve a larger problem, solar or hydrogen systems, or that is the only discussions point, right? But literally, I mean, it is education is also important, where food system today is actually the number one source of greenhouse gas emission, right? How we produce the food. And largely, if you look at the food system, the animal agriculture, mainly because of the dairy and the meat, they are the responsible for climate change. So some countries like US, Israel, or Singapore, especially, they are progressive in this space. Their government has taken a huge step long time back, right? A lot of investment funds are available, right? With respect to especially climate investments, right, across different verticals, right? So these are the few countries, but largely, if you look at a holistic world today, Even yeah, food system is still people don't know that how our food is has been produced. Let's say for an example,
Yeah,
even the cow is producing methane, right? So one cow can produce up to 500 kg of methane per single day, right? So these are the things actually. Some education is definitely required. Some government policy around how many bovine production we should limit out, right? And yeah, but if you look at food system is a definitely a problem with respect to we can't produce more and more animals just for uh, our food need basically, right? We need to have some limit or threshold or certain things in the future. Otherwise, if you look at the India as human population, we are number one already now, but not many know that bovine production, we are already number one for a long time. It's more than 300 millions of the bovine.
yeah,
Although India is not a beef eating country, but
yeah.
one of the largest beef exporter country as well, right? So there are
Absolutely,
multiple aspects
absolutely.
to look at that do we really need to produce more and more animals basically,
Yeah,
and then to feed animal and they provide the food for us, right? So this is not going to be sustainable
yeah.
looking at growing population.
Yeah, so let me also put that into like a statistic, right? Because I love numbers and the statistics around it. Animal agriculture accounts for roughly 60% of our of agriculture land use, and it only accounts for 15% of our calories. So 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 that's stark, right? Like that is also like a crazy statistic. We don't even get that much of calories from meat and dairy as we would do from a whole grain diet or from like a proper vegetarian diet, which actually consumes 1/7, 1/8 less the resources than it actually does for meat. So, Parini, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I would like to add one point. Like majorly, like we eat the dairy products and animal products because of the proteins, right? But many people don't know about that. We need to first feed the animal. Like we need to first, there is one statistic, we need to first 6x amount of the protein. We need to feed the animals. And in reverse, we will get the 3x amount of protein. So this ratio is not a sustainable one. I think this ratio should be reversible. So anyway, this like a not a sustainable solution. Even
Absolutely.
for the yeah, even for the chicken also, we need to feed like a 9x amount of the protein to the chicken, and then we will get the like a 1x amount, 2x amount of the protein.
Yeah. And just like you had mentioned, Sohil, there's one thing that you talked about was, we do not have a perfect day, we do not have a beyond, we do not have a homegrown impossible foods, right? And also because we've seen the talent, but I'm just like wondering, why is that not the case? You interact with founders in this space as well. Why is it that India is unable, though the problem is so stark in India, why is it that we're so behind the curve in terms of innovation when it comes to food tech compared to the West?
Yeah, so there are multiple aspects to look at, right? India as a country, we've never been into the high-tech research or IP driven country, right? We don't file, we are the lowest in terms of the IP and the patents today, right? So that is what the focus area we should have from public sector side as well as the private sector side, right? Uh, if you look at outside, like there are specific venture capital firms who wanted to back research. They have the patient capital, right, where they can wait for uh, even 10, 15 years also the time, right? And they've seen that they are getting more exits, good exits, and the returns in terms of any deep tech science or the technology the startups are working on, right? Because to create a rocket, you need initially money, right? And you need to
Yeah.
wait at least 5 years to build a rocket, right? So that philosophy actually uh, in India we are lacking somewhere, right? It's all about SaaS, e-commerce, or fintech to a certain extent, right? Secondly, that is the maturity of the investment firm is also important. Third one is like a government also, right? So if you look at a lot of universities, especially in the West and the Europe, they have the huge capital, right, to fund research projects, the students' entrepreneurship and all, right? And it is in the million of the dollars. So we don't get much high level of grants in India, right? Uh, but this is the university level also a lot of research encouragement and the funds and the capital is available where such innovation idea can come and actually to convert academic research into the industrial research, right? So that is what the point where I have not much seen that Indian even scientists or the PhD holders generally in this space. They just go outside India to find a better opportunity,
Yeah,
right? And biotech, pharmaceutical is still, if you look at even today, the one of the lowest paying industry,
Okay.
right? So that is how I think even good resources are also not want to continue maybe a startup or even kind of a job, regular job in India. And most of these resources look out for PhD, postdoc outside India, right? So I think we need to have more opportunities or ecosystem development, right? So that we can have uh, control over the resources and uh, certainly, definitely, there is a biotech is all about high capital investment also, right? So the funds who can have the patient capital, who can wait to get the sustainable business out of it, right? And this is very opposite where it is not a cash burn businesses, right? Where VCs would like love to invest in India, but the patient capital where they can hold their money for getting the product regulatory, right? In 5, 10 years, 15 years journey,
okay.
right? So that's how I think a lot of things is possible, and also the government angle is also very much important because if you look at certainly the developed nations basically they have specific policy across let's say animal agriculture. Many of the European countries today they understand the climate very well than us, and they are banning animal agriculture or they are putting a lot of restrictions. They are protecting farmers to move out of certain businesses, right? So this level of initiatives are already started, and which we are looking at, and multiple countries are also following, but especially in the Europe at the moment of time. Uh, so that's how I think we need to also have certain things with respect to how we can have the next economy as a bioeconomy, because that is what the very clear uh, thing that next century is the bioeconomy, which we have seen the COVID recently, right? How I mean, it had impact on the every single country, right, globally, and then the vaccine productions or how the innovation should happen to solve the major problem for everyone, right? And then biology has solved a problem, right? But this is kind of a pandemic can come, right, in the future also. We never know. So next economy is a bioeconomy, and government should have, I think, certainly some policy adoptions or the long-term plan, right,
Yeah,
where we can have the advantage of the lot of biotech innovations in the
yeah,
country.
yeah, and that's a very like interesting point you brought out because I think so. This is one thing that I really see today is uh, where we were in the 60s and 70s. It was about engineering and physics that was building economic growth and
Yeah.
and and uh, and chemistry, and not really biology. But today I see a beautiful marrying of looking at biology and inspiration of nature to actually solve our climate problem. So, Parini, can you maybe just elaborate a little bit like on that in the work that you're doing at Zero Cow Factory?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the Zero Cow Factory is all about the precision fermentation based company. And like in general, I can explain that is the cellular agriculture base. So cellular agriculture base is like in simple word, I can say it's a production of the animal products without any animal. For example, dairy products, egg, and meat products. Right. And in cellular agriculture also like there are two kind of the areas, like two sub areas. So first is the precision fermentation and second is the cell based or cultivated based method. So we are into the precision fermentation based techniques. And basically, we are producing the animal-free proteins, specifically to dairy proteins, using the precision fermentation. And for our technology, there are two basic biotechnology tools we are using. First is the bioengineering the microbes, and second is the precision fermentation technology. So these are the two basic biotechnological principles we are using for production of animal-free milk proteins.
That's amazing. And for the simple, for people who don't like understand this like enough, what is the difference between precision fermentation and cellular based meat and agriculture? Because there's always this very thin line of difference people have, and
Yeah,
they tend to also use both interchangeably, right? So I would love if
yeah.
you could just demystify this for our audience.
Yeah, sure. So basically, precision fermentation is not a completely new technology now. From century, we are using this technology. For example, for the vaccine production, for different kind of the therapeutic production, we are using the fermentation technology. So precision fermentation means the fermentation technology we use to produce the precise or specific product. For example, proteins, enzyme, or vaccine. But earlier, no one has used this technology specifically for the food proteins or the food products. So that's why the precision fermentation is there. And precision fermentation, basically, we use the genetically engineered microorganism for the production of the precise product. Whereas into the cell-based or cultivation-based method, it's a completely new, different approach. In that, particularly the stem cell-based technology is there. So there, in that particular technology, we use the animal bar technology or animal cell culture, animal tissue culture based approach. We use the stem cell culture and allow them that particular stem cell culture to differentiate into the different kind of the cells and to produce the different kind of the products. Right. So cell-based cultivation-based method basically we use for the cell-based meat, cell-based seafood, cell-based egg, those kind of the products we use the cultivation-based methods.
Interesting, interesting. And we spoke about like one of the things where India is the largest bovine animal producer in the world. We're the largest dairy producer and but no, we're the second largest dairy producer, largest dairy consumer in the world. Uh, and we spoke about the government support, Sohil. You said that in the West there are research institutions and there are universities who actually support it, and over here the infrastructure is not that good at that level, or the support is not as much as what it should be. Uh, so so my question is actually in two parts. Is it because India is so reliant on dairy where you're seeing regulation over here being a little bit slower, or the support for businesses like this being a little bit slower?
Mm, Multiple aspects. One is a vision, right? So if you look at there's no policy, at least I know in India, that how many bovine production point of view, basically, right? So there is no limit, right? Irrespective of the industry, right? Meat or dairy, you can consider, right? Even the flip side is that India is also, I mean, exporting milk and surplus amount, right? That is also damaging our climate for sure, right? But end of the day, we are getting a revenue out of it. So there are multiple economic angle also government has to think through, right? And especially for dairy, let's say speak about as a naturally, I mean, as a human, 70% population is a lactose intolerance, right? So there's a white lie also for last many centuries that there is no technical reason that why we should drink animal milk. Because if you look at 7 out of 10, and certain countries it is 9 out of 10, the ratio is the lactose intolerance. So it means that technically uh, it is not suitable for our consumption, right? But that is also kind of a consumer point of view. If you look at that, education or that kind of a maturity is required, right? Because a lot of dairy products we are consuming from maybe when we are small, right? And our body has adjusted to certain extent as well. But if you look at the West, especially the veganism is very much popular for last at least a decade, right? And the ratio, the conversion is really growing fast, right? Because they have, as a consumer also, they don't want to consume, let's say, animal products or dairy products, especially, right? There may be various reasons, right? One can, maybe they know that I'm lactose intolerance, maybe, right? Second, maybe new generation, especially, they are very keen about their diet, right? So how my food has been produced, where it has been produced, right? And they are also more keen for climate change and animal welfare as well, right? So these are the multiple factors are definitely there, but in largely in the developed countries, the trend has definitely at a progressive stage where even consumer awareness is at different level, And that's why even the demand, right? It is all about demand and supply end of the day, right? So that demand is going really down. So if you look at the plant-based milk industry, is not a new in US, right? So if you look at the data for last 10 years, the US, the animal milk consumption has literally has gone down, and plant-based milk alternatives has gone up, right? And this is because of the demand from the consumers actually.
Yeah.
Similarly, UK and European also, so certain countries where plant-based milk demand has gone up, right? So that is how I think if we need to balance it out with respect to what is good for us, uh, what is bad for us, uh, and also the policies around. But also as a India, it's always a value for money country where such products, plant-based alternatives, or what we are talking about, precision fermentation, this is definitely a future. But to start with, these are expensive products, right? So we need to also consider that the country specific how much the purchasing power parity is there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can the consumer can afford to pay 3x, 4x for nutritional products? And what is that market share altogether, basically, for companies to grow, right? But US has seen that it has that purchasing power with consumers, and the demand is flowing from the consumer, and that is why I think these factors are helping to build that new wave
To
in
get
terms
those
of
policies up
transformation.
in place as well. That's interesting. And at the same time, we like India is also known as a biotechnology manufacturing powerhouse, right? We manufacture all
Yeah.
vaccines.
Yeah.
Precision fermentation is something that we know very well in from medical science and just from the manufacturing perspective. We've never, like you said, we've never done IPs, but we've always been contract manufacturers or contract researchers for
Yeah.
large or drug companies in the West. Is that an advantage to actually setting up a business like this in India?
Absolutely. So India is like a biomanufacturing hub already established in last couple of years, right? We have seen for the, let's say, vaccine during the COVID and all, right? Even we are the largest pharmaceutical or drugs, right? Related CRO, CDMO kind of a service provider today. Definitely, so zero cow factory is always in innovation phase where we wanted to create more IPs and patents, right? And that is what the game. But if you look at the better unit economics in the future for the consumer, right? Because these products are definitely more climate friendly, but nutritionally also better. But end of the day, the price the consumer wanted to pay is the important aspect to look at, right? So that once the consumer is purchasing, they should repeatedly buy such products, right? And that is why the price is more important. Uh, and if you look at a lot of innovation has happened in the US largely, and then Europe, right? And then the flow starts in Asia and Africa. That is what the trend always we look at, irrespective of the
Absolutely.
industries, right?
Yeah.
But when something is at a scale, then Asia largely, the India and China is a superpower in terms of the export or low cost
Being able to
manufacturing,
manufacture and bring the product to commercial scale.
right? And we can export also, right? So that is how I think this space is still nascent if you look at even India and China. But in the future, that is what the advantage of the low cost manufacturing and the resources we could utilize, right? Where we can definitely have a lot of things basically. But first step is the innovation and getting right product, right? The scale up has the different challenges, even if it's a precision fermentation or cellular agriculture or cell based basically, right? But first is the innovation and then the contract manufacturing, right? So now I think a lot of companies and the investment is coming for innovation or the technology building. This is a
Yeah.
technology building phase.
Got it.
And if you look at the bioreactors, the capacity also, that is a shortage today globally. This is a global problem. Now we have seen few bigger funds are coming up to build infrastructure, right? We have seen a lot of investment is happened in the last few years, and some unicorns in the this space already. Um, but after that, the infrastructure is a big problem, right? Because we need to produce the protein, let's say for an example, at a scale. If cell-based chicken, meat, anything, right, at a scale. And once you produce at a scale only, that time the you will get a better price for the consumers, right? Or you at least can match the price for the traditional products in the market.
Yeah.
So this is a long way for sure, definitely, because infrastructure is a big problem even today, even if you solve the problem. but how to scale,
Okay.
and a lot of capital is also required, right? But I'm sure that it's a journey, it's a learning curve also for a lot of companies, and a lot of regulators and the governments are also taking a lot of steps, right? So I can tell you when we started, India was not a targeted market for us. We wanted to be a made in India for the global. We wanted always a global brand. But today there are five countries who have approved such product, right? So that is what we have seen in last 3 years, and I'm sure that next 5 to 10 years we will see more and more countries will approve such products. They will change their policies and the regulations.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot to discover. I always say that this space is really interesting, but it's a real science.
And it's actually not too far behind for India because the FSSAI, from what I know, it is actually looking at this space closely and looking to come up and form regulation like around it. I think they also see an opportunity over here for India to
Uh,
be a manufacturer.
yeah, even they've approved, I mean, one of
They are,
the protein for Perfect Day.
Oh wow. Oh, they have. Okay, great.
yeah, them,
Yeah.
they,
And I also know Perfect Day has set up a manufacturing now, like in Gujarat as well, and that now that's competition for you guys, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, Parini, this is such a tough industry, typically
yeah.
very male dominated. You're a female co-founder. Just stating the obvious. What are the challenges you faced, and as an individual in this space, but also as Zero Cow Factory, what challenges have you guys faced like early on, and what vision do you have for Zero Cow Factory?
Okay, so regarding the challenges, like many challenges are there, like entrepreneur journey without challenges is like a very difficult one. So like when we started like with Zero Cow Factory, so we have gone through the observational studies and everything, but there is no relevant data or any kind of the research is available because this is like a completely new innovation field, no data and everything is available. But we have started when we have enough confidence, and then we have built it like some kind of the standard protocol, some kind of the standard data, and we have started our journey. So that's the one thing, like no standard data, no research data, and completely new innovative field. That's the one challenge is. Second is there is no education related to that this particular kind of the thing. So talent hiring is a one of the major challenge for this particular kind of the field because the like a PhD person with like a 10 years, 20 years of experience, but they don't have like expertise for the specific kind of the strain, specific kind of the microorganism what we are working on, or like a specifically for the food protein. So they will also take time to understand this kind of the field, like how they are work, how they behave. So that's another challenge is means like a talent hiring is also another challenge is like a, so these are the like a challenges we have faced, but our vision is a clear. We want to be a like a Asia's first, or we want to be made in India product for the global one, and like a world like a first company for the casing product.
Got it.
Uh, yeah, for the global.
How far away are you all from your first product?
Yeah. So we are figuring out few things. Technically, there are so many challenges, right? And
Yeah.
especially when Parini mentioned the casein. So even though there are some approvals for the animal-free whey protein, but casein is a difficult molecule to express using microorganism and to scale, and there are certain challenges for purification. So, so that is what I think. We are at a stage where, if you look at, I mean, the straight answer about regulatory or the go-to-market, we are at least 2 years away to reach that stage.
Okay, nice. Uh, I want to just like switch gears a little bit, move into you've of course raised one round like of financing from venture capital, apart from sort of angel investors, etc., who've invested in your like early on as well. But this whole space is also hotting up. Climate tech, everyone is chasing climate deals. Uh, how are y'all seeing this entire approach changing from from a founder's lens looking at investors, how are you all seeing it? And how has your fundraise journey sort of been? Was it challenging to sort of get people to understand your story, understand what you're doing, like etc., to actually be able to get them to write you a check?
Uh, yeah, I think this is difficult space, right? And especially if you are into climate and food tech, if you are solving the problem, a larger problem, it is definitely uh, challenging space, and that's why the even raising capital is also challenging, right? So if you look at, we don't have much specific climate funds or research-based funds in India, right? Even though there are not much enough grants, right, to really create impact out of food space. So initially, I think pre-seed and so even when you look at, let's say, initial few POC or MVP, right, you always look for grants or the raising small checks, angel or the pre-seed round. So incubation point of view also there were a lot of challenges because not much infrastructure is available, which we require, right? And huge capital is also required. And that understanding of the incubation to support, right, mentorship, advisory, right? And that's why I think we did a couple of global programs to get initial few help basically ideally. And we did a pre-seed also from global investors. Uh, and the seed round was definitely important, right? When you have certain MVP or something, right? And you wanted to make it um, next year growth, right? And that is how we wanted a multi-million dollar check, which is very difficult in India without any revenue because we even don't know the regulatory hurdles or when the commercialization, how it will happen, right? So that's how it was really a challenging task to raise uh, 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 funds, but we approach a couple of deep tech funds, right? But not many understand the space or the science behind these or the market or the industry. It is new, right? So it is always the education which we need to provide. We need to help them understand how big is the problem, how we are solving, what are our defensibility, how many IPs we carry, right? How we have the plan, let's say, if it is not possible today, but next 5 years, how we can make it possible, right? And building their own thesis around the sector, right? Because as an investor, also they have the money and they look after for right startups to invest, right? So that they can make money out of it. So so that's how I think it is not easy to understand space for even investors, right? But getting into the this kind of a deep tech funds, showing our products, our proof of concept, which was impossible 10 years ago, some of them, and helping them to build their thesis, and it is sometimes 3 months, 6 months, right? And finally, we got started getting commitments and green frontier capital which you are representing, right? So it's good that the first climate fund in India, right? And we started discussion with Sandeep. You know, in the first call we were very much aligned because Sandeep has invested a lot into food tech startups in the West, right? So that was the point. He had some understanding about this space along with the climate fund. So in the first call also we were on the same page. We did not explain the problem statement because he already knew the problem statement, right? So so that's how it was a difficult journey, but then we never stopped. I mean, being in India, we are still in India, right? It is easy to get outside India, incorporate in Singapore or US to get 1 or 2 million,
Yeah,
right? But that was never, I think, our roadmap, right? So, but I think if you're doing good job, you have something which is not easy to crack. If you have the technology, some moat around what you're building, then I think investors are also uh, ready to invest. And that's how I think we formulated our seed round. And one of the dairy companies also invested from Europe. So
yeah,
that adds also the validation with respect to why the food company is also coming, right, to invest and make it happen.
yeah. That's interesting because, and I would want to just like ask you all, and maybe each of y'all can pick one, or one of y'all can pick two, and the other one can pick one. But what are the three key points of advice that you would give to founders today who are trying to solve deep tech problems, what would you tell them? Because you all seem to have walked down a very, like, I would probably say that you all walked through a jungle without a path, right? So essentially just trying to figure out which is the best way to go through and come out on the other side. So which you all have now, but what is the advice you would give to young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in that sense who are building in a similar space as you all?
So yeah, I think multiple aspects. If you look at the opportunity within the climate is a huge, right? And food space is especially it's a very nascent, a lot to discover, and it's a like a $1 trillion opportunity always, right? To get into the food and water is a basic thing, right? So that is what I think. You have a lot to work, and it will definitely opportunity to make a big business out of it. So. Uh, for the new maybe young founders, I think the passion what they are solving is very much important in this space. Why you right, why you're doing this something, right, based on the personal interest or your background, or basically if you're really wanted to solve a problem, I think passion is the number one is required, right? Because it is uh, not an easy path definitely, and when you are leading any R&D startup, you have challenges every single second. Correct. You need to pivot, you need to take some hard calls, right? And because there is no thumb rule, but you are going to create something, data for the world, right, to process. Secondly, also, today is very clear that when you wanted to really grow fast, the time is also essential, right? Your entry point, right? So when you are entering, that is very much important. If you look at, for an example, US plant-based, let's say alternative milk, for an example, is not a new thing, but in India it has just started, right? Let's say oat milk, almond milk, right? And that is also very nascent, but Indian consumers are, I don't think, more than 1.1% of the consumer will pay 4x for the such kind of a products, right? So that is what to identify uh, right uh, a time, that is the how the market, right, and with the time to approach. And third one is that capital is important thing, right, for growing fast, right, and helping. It is not only capital, but the strategic partners who can help you to get the next level, right, in your journey. But without a tech and your moat, how you are creating, it is very difficult to raise funds in today's time, irrespective of the industry you are into. And that's why we have seen a lot of plant-based startups are struggling or they are declining actually,
Yeah,
because there is not much science or the technical advantage, right? Someone is at certain stage today, but someone can easily copy tomorrow, right?
yeah,
And they can just get into the market, right? So then it's a price war and the competition. But how the technology utilization and how strong you are creating your IPs and patents, right? Not looking at the commercialization and the revenue, but how you are creating a value, right, for yourself, your company, and also the investors going forward. So there are a few aspects I think to look at is very important, especially when deep take or climate take initiatives when someone is at ideation stage.
nice. So the passion needs to be there, that the burning need and fire to solve something. Then you said that it needs to be in a very clear market, and like you need to identify that, and a TAM needs to be very well. And two, you need good partners in the strategic capital to be able to sort of push you through your journey, like in your thing. Very good points of advice. Parini, do you want to like add anything to that, or
Yeah. Just I want to add like one or 2 points only. Like just believe in yourself and like just believe in your vision and just follow the
yeah,
path to become a best whatever you do. Like
exactly. So like I love like asking founders this, right? Because there are days where you just don't want to get up and go to the office, or in your case the lab, right? You just don't, like, you just are like, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? What am I doing? You know, like, am I actually, like, am I crazy? Like, I'm trying to solve this thing which is 2 years away from commercialization. How am I going to get it? You have like all these ifs and buts. So Parini, what is the one thing that actually drives you and gets you out of bed every morning and gets you to the zero car factory lab or office every day?
like I have always a dream to like innovate anything like completely new innovative things And now to have the animal free proteins and to go to lab and every day to follow that particular innovation technology and process, that's and my passion related to the biotechnology. That's every day one motto for me
Yeah.
that follow means completely.
What about you, Sohil? What is that one thing that gets you out and in the office every day?
No, so I think this is the interesting space challenges, but we treat challenges as fun, right? And that is what the culture we are building across as a team also when we are scaling up. So more importantly, we wanted to definitely working on a very tough path where we are converting academic research to the industrial research and to create a
Mhm.
big impact out of it, right? And this is always the thought process is that we are not building something for next decade. We are building for the next century, right? And such big problems and the solutions for the century, it's like a huge
So
transformative
2 years in the
things
matter
and
of
challenges. Yeah.
of a century does not make any difference, right? Like 2 years away from from commercialization doesn't make any difference if you're building something for the next century. Very interesting. Just the last bits, right? So who are your role models? Who is it that you want to model your life after, or is there someone that you look up to that you want to model your life like after? So each of y'all can probably take like a turn to just tell me who is that one person that you want to model your life after, or
Many, but not
there could be
exactly. There is no
multiple,
specific.
or there could be multiple as well, right? So you want to take
Yeah, but not
you want to take bits and
specific.
pieces from different people, but yeah, like if it is multiple, maybe
Uh,
give me two or three names, right? So
yeah, so not specific. I would say for me at least, it's role model can be some startup or some company or some country as well, where we have seen, especially if you look, if I relate with the zero cow factory, right? To get into new category creation is very difficult, right? And there are not much role model actually in this
no, like
space, right? But
I thought you would say like someone like a Josh Tetrick is like a role model for you, right? Like what he's done with
yeah,
Just.
but if you look at this is like a never-ending story, right? Even for Josh Tetrick building it
Yeah.
just, but still, I think problem to solve at a scale, right? So it's not something 2 plus 2 4, right? It is always a hunger to improve, right? And getting
Yeah,
into the next level. So
got it.
this is the spaces that's why it's a fun, right? But these are the early adopters and really wonderful people who have created at least to think about that. This is how things will be possible in the near future, right? This is the future of food. That's what we call it out, right? Yeah, but I think if you ask anyone, even Josh Statrick, I think even it is just a start. Lot to discover and
Nice.
to improve every single day, and that is how it's a journey. I don't think there is end.
Do you have like any role models, Parini?
Not
Any?
like exactly, yeah, but there are many, but I can't say like a particular name, like this one is my role model. Like, I generally follow the many people's
So who are the people that you like to
for
follow the most?
I generally closely follows the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam thoughts and so many people are there, many scientists are there who are the best in their field.
Yeah.
So I generally follow those people.
I'm fairly certain you're going to be the best in this field as well. Like, of course, it's in my interest to also say that because we're an investor, like in your business. But I'm fairly certain that you will be the best in this field. But thank you both of you for being part of this conversation. I really uh, I really enjoyed talking to the two of you. Like also because this is a space that's also very dear to my heart. I'm a practicing flexitarian for the last 6 years. So from being a voracious meat eater to now being a to being to being completely like flexitarian and completely off dairy. And that's actually one of the big things that I've noticed like in my health was when I stopped having dairy like 5 years ago. I noticed a huge difference in my health. So to anyone also listening out there, uh it you feel more energized, you don't feel bloaty, you don't feel like so many things just go like away when you just get off animal based products. So I know we're going to interact a lot more, but thank the both of you for this. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Brewed for Change with Zero Cow Factory. And stay tuned for more. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, JFC and Karan. Yeah, have a good day. Bye.